Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Ladies on a Roll. Today, I have a very special guest. She is a funny lady. Welcome, my good friend, Brittney Pettus.
Hey, how's it going, Celeste?
It's going great. Thank you for agreeing to do this show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm so glad you're here because when I asked you what show you wanted to do, you said you wanted to do I Love Lucy.
I love Lucy, Celeste.
That is a great show. I mean, I think we all grew up on it. I have to know, why did you choose this show series?
You know what? It's in the name. I love her. I love who she embodies. She had such like great physical comedy. Because back then, I mean, it really wasn't for the storyline. If you really like pay attention to the episodes, it really has just kind of one format. You know, Lucy, she gets into trouble. Ricky, she has to get herself out of this like sticky situation with her best friend.
Yeah.
And then here comes like Ricky, like, you know, you got some splaining to do. And then she kind of like, there's like some apology at the end. And then they kind of confess, they're like, oh, I love you so much. And, you know, I love you for you. And all this other stuff. And then, and that's the premise of the show. So you're not following a storyline per se. You're following her as an individual in this love between this couple. And I loved the love that they had for each other and how it like portrayed on film, which, you know, in their personal life, they were able to just kind of, you know, block everything because they had a hard personal life. Yeah. But on film.
I read that. Yeah.
On film, like the love.
It was magic. It was magic on film.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So I think that it was, I was always intrigued by her as a person.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that she was, even for that time, I don't think there is anybody like her.
And there's never been anyone before, during, or after her. I mean, she was definitely one of a kind. She was an actress who set a precedent for future comedy for women. I mean, that is absolutely something unheard of back then, was a funny female.
Right.
And she was physical comedy on top of it. I mean, think of all the stuff she would do that was actually physical. I mean, it was amazing. And some of the really great things that used to happen back in those days, you know, because this was a lot of black and white that we're watching. There's no color to any of these episodes, but you can imagine what things actually look like. In addition to all that, one of my favorite things that started happening in those episodes is that the longer the seasons continued to go, the more she took risks. She just started doing a lot more physical acting without saying anything. And it said so much. I mean, you would just laugh for the longest time based on just the shortest expression or movement or something like that. I mean, she really brought so much to the acting world and to TV and to comedy. So I can completely understand why you wanted to choose her. I mean, she's an absolute role model.
Her facial expressions did it for me. She was like the Jim Carrey of like comedy. You know,
oh my gosh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, like her facial expressions were just ridiculously funny. She was amazing. I absolutely like, even thinking about her, she's such a strong individual.
Right.
Because in order to like run a TV show like that as a woman back in the 50s, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's unheard of.
It's unheard of.
Yeah.
And she just pushed the boundaries, and I'm sure it was really hard for her, and she had to be kind of aggressive with it. You know, she wasn't like her character.
The great thing is she had her own production studio with Desi. And so they had pretty much a lot of say-so of what was happening, even though they had higher executives to answer to. And at the same time, she also had Desi's support, which kind of brought more of the love of their relationship together. I mean, yeah, and that's unheard of. Back then, you just didn't have your husband supporting you in that way, because even in some of the episodes, which we're going to start talking about here in a little bit, there was issues back in the 50s that we clearly do not have in 2022.
Clearly.
For example, it was completely appropriate for a husband to spank his wife.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And to give her an allowance.
Right. So there was those aspects. And here's the thing. Women didn't fight that because there's plenty of episodes where Lucy would say things to Ricky like, hey, I know you're going to give me a spanking over this, but I went and did this anyways. And you're just like,
that patriarchy.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
unheard of.
Yes.
For sure. No, I totally agree with that. I feel like it was, it definitely like pushed us back as women and individuals.
But you see how far we've come.
But it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see how far we come. So it's nice. Honestly, I feel like that was part of the comedy, was like him coming in and her getting caught by that. Like that was part of it back then.
But that was always the shenanigans of it, though. That was always the shenanigans. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's probably why I connected with her as well when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like, I was that rambunctious young kid, because I would watch it at Nick at Night when like Dick Van Dyke was coming on and Mary Tyler Moore and all that stuff. So I would watch like, you know, my cartoons in the daytime, and then at like 8 or 9 o'clock it would be Nick at Night, and it would be just all black and white TV shows.
Yeah.
And I do remember Lucy being one of them.
Really?
And I remember like when I was younger, now that I think about it, I had a really bad case of ADHD. So I was like that rambunctious kid who could never shut up, who, you know, I did all the like facial expressions. I had people coming in like telling me to be quiet when I just was like running around the room being crazy. So I felt like watching her was like almost like watching a little bit of myself.
Really?
Getting into trouble and like people like catching, like, you got some splaining to do. Like that was me. I had some splaining to do. So
how old were you when you were watching these episodes?
Man, I was young. I had to have been in like elementary school. It started in elementary school.
Did you get turned on by it from your mom, or did you just turn on Nick at Night and there it was and you just started watching it?
You know, I think it was my mom and my dad. My mom is really still to this day into black and white films.
Oh, really?
So I can't I wouldn't be able to tell you what the names of them are, but I would walk into a room and there would be like these films on that were in black and white, and I felt like it was just like so compelling, and I didn't connect this back then, but there were there were very little cuts. It was just like, it was almost like watching a live theater.
Almost, yeah.
So watching it, and they were long. Long.
So what it is that they didn't use multi-cameras is what it was. Right. So you didn't see like your view, my view, side view, back of my head, back of your head, you know, like that. That's multi-camera. And that's what they did with I Love Lucy, which they were one of the biggest like leaders on, was doing this multicam thing. But back in the day for black and white movies, they would do it all in one huge long shot. So the actors would have to memorize all those lines for that day. And you add singing or dancing to it, and it's
the emotion that came out of it. To be honest, I feel like that makes them like even more intriguing actors, because they had to do all of that, you know what I mean? And watching that is just as like intriguing. Like, and I think as a kid, well, my dad, he was in radio, and he was in radio. So I grew up around the entertainment industry. So everything surrounding it really like intrigued me. It really, you know, it captured me. I really loved the show. I really do. Still to this day, I'll watch it like over and over again, all 6 seasons.
Wow.
I even watched like documentaries. They came out with a new movie with her, and who was the person that played her?
Nicole Kidman.
Nicole Kidman played her.
Yeah, I saw that. I got a problem with Nicole Kidman.
Talk to me.
Not like I'd ever work with an A-list actor. I'd hope for someday, but doubt if I would ever work with Nicole Kidman, so I'm just going to say it. This is the second movie where I saw Nicole Kidman try to play an actress from back in the day. Yeah. So her first one was Bewitched, right? But that was more like a movie with Will Ferrell and stuff. I did not think she did a great job in there. Yeah. Same thing with this.
You know,
and the guy who played Ricky was so old.
Like, Ricky was such like a sex symbol back then. He was
who was this guy they got? Who was this actor? I didn't even look him up. That's how much I didn't want to know who he was. I didn't even look him up.
Yeah, he did not embody Ricky.
It did nothing
at all.
Not good. Yeah, to be honest, Desi Arnaz was way more good looking than this guy.
100%.
It just felt like they dyed his hair.
Yeah.
And just said, hey, show up and be Ricky Ricardo. You know, like, who are you?
Yeah.
No one knows who you are.
Show some respect.
Yeah. The only good actor was the actor who plays Fred. Which is William Frawley, and that original actor, forgive me, I forget his name. He does the insurance commercials and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But he has Oscars. I mean, so he's a talented actor. He did a great job playing Fred. But Lucy and Ricky,
yeah, no.
You know, I was really upset. I'm like, this is the second movie with Nicole Kidman, and she doesn't do well.
I actually saw a interview with her daughter.
Nicole Kidman's daughter?
No. Lucille Ball's daughter.
Oh, okay.
And how she felt like Nicole Kidman portrayed her.
See how hard it is to talk?
It is really difficult. Words. But they had an interview with her. And she said that she actually liked the fact that they didn't get someone who looked exactly like her. Why? I don't really know.
Yeah.
But she said that if they had gotten someone that looked exactly like her, she wouldn't have appreciated as much. But she said that she did a really good job as far as like who she was as a person.
Yeah.
So I mean, if her daughter can say that, then
I think she was just being nice.
You think so?
Yeah.
She was like, Nicole Kidman's gonna watch this.
Yeah.
She got awards. And, it's a better.
Well, I mean, and so that's Lucy Arnaz, who you're talking about, and you know, we didn't set to talk about her, but she had a huge career herself in acting and doing a bunch of different things. So, you know, she was on the Lucy Show, which was after I Love Lucy.
Yeah.
And she also was like in another show with her mom.
Yeah.
And she also did some singing, and she did other movies and TV shows. So she's had a career out there herself, not as big and strong as Lucille Ball, but she definitely was out there, and a lot of people know who she is. So
yeah, I you know, after I Love Lucy, I gotta admit, the other shows I tried watching, the Lucy Show, it's so different without
not the
Ricky.
same.
It's not the
and it's
same.
in color, and it kind of throws you off when you see her hair, that weird bright orange red hair, and you're like, it's kind of startling. So I know exactly what you're saying. And then they bring in like Vivian Vance for some of her shows too, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, Vivian, you get that's how she would look, you know, like she's not too much of a shocker. But you see Lucy and you're just like, whoa.
Yeah,
but the other thing is, she did I Love Lucy when she was 40. So by the time that show ended, and then she started doing other shows, I mean, she's already hitting the 50 mark and plus. And she's a heavy smoker, so that ages your skin really, really fast, especially back then.
There was an episode of the Lucy Show where there was this guy that was she was trying to land this date with this guy. And he was this young, muscular dude that was just like so into her. And I was like, yeah, she's definitely the director on this show.
Why not? Look, if you're going to produce and direct a show, get a good-looking guy.
Right.
Maybe have them take off their shirt or so,
why
you know?
not?
Yeah, why not?
But that kind of took me out of it. It got to a point where I felt like, I don't know. It was kind of reaching after that for me.
It was, yeah. A lot of her shows didn't quite have the same magic is basically what it was. There was a certain magic with all four of the main characters of Ricky and Lucy and Fred and Ethel. There was a magic to that. And I know, and I'm sure you know, that Vivian Vance and William Frawley didn't get along that very well.
No, they did not. Do you know why?
I'm not exactly sure. There seems to be some rumors about it. All I could see or read about was that she didn't like the fact that he was very cantankerous and drunk. Yeah. And that's about it.
He was really arrogant. Not only that, but she was upset because she was meant to play the older neighbor. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
yeah.
the fact that she hated that her co-star was like this old man, and it was like
a good 20. He was 20 years older than her in real life.
She was like, "Where is this reality? Why can't I get some like young strapping man like Ricky Ricardo?" So not only does she have to deal with like his arrogance and his drunken behaviors, but now she's like she's insulted the fact that you think that this could be my husband,
right?
And they tried to portray her as older when in reality, I think they even had it in the contract, and I think this is in the movie too. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But it was in the contract that she had to maintain a certain weight above Lucy.
Yeah.
To make sure that, you know, all eyes were on her.
Yeah.
And to have her like, you know your place.
Right.
You know?
And that's sad because actually Vivian Vance was beautiful.
She was did you see pictures of her when she was younger?
Absolutely. Yeah.
She is amazingly beautiful.
She was beautiful even at 40, even though they tried to kind of fatten her up a little bit and, you know, make her this little homely housewife next door. She still brought it.
Oh,
she
100%.
Really did.
I feel sorry for her sometimes.
I think we all do. Because I mean, it's hard enough to be someone who's in the background, you know.
Yeah.
Like when she was on the Lucy show, she had a much more front runner spot and she didn't have to worry about her weight or anything like that. But
yeah, she ended up leaving. I don't know why she left. I never really looked it up, but she ended up leaving the Lucy show and they replaced her with a younger co-star.
She had breast cancer.
Right, that's what took her.
Yeah,
that was
I think
how she died.
I think it was. I'm not sure if they coincided, but I think it was because she got
sick, right?
And she couldn't do much, and so she was doing Maxwell Coffee House commercials to kind of pay the bills, type of thing.
Yeah,
and and that's what she ultimately died of.
Yeah, and I just feel like she was never really given the recognition. She was always she was always Ethel. I don't think that she was ever seen as Vivian Vance. She was Ethel Mertz.
She did win one daytime Emmy for outstanding comedic supporting actress,
but that's all she ever was.
And she was nominated the years after that too. So she did have some recognition, so that's good to hear. But she probably deserved a lot more because she was at the same level as Lucille Ball's character. 100%. She really was. I mean, all of us remember about the shows is how Lucy and Ethel were always getting into trouble, and it took little to no provocation to get Ethel to do something
100%
with her, right?
So she'd fight a little bit at the beginning, like, Lucy, should we really do this? Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, like the resistance wasn't that hard.
She didn't resist.
You know, she would even say, "Oh no, the last time you talked me into something, we did this and this," and then Lucy's like, "Okay, but you're my best friend. Okay, let's go." You know, like there wasn't that hard push back and forth. Be like, "No, Lucy, I'm not doing this. I'm going to go home and take a nap or eat lunch. Goodbye." You know, there was never leaving the room. So yeah, Vivian Vance's character truly got the same level of what Lucille Ball's character got in the TV show. However, you know, now that I'm thinking of it, I bet you Vivian Vance did not get the same paycheck.
Oh, 100%.
You know,
no,
which would have been fair
not.
Because she was equally right there with
just
Lucille
as
Ball.
Important. It was just as important for her to be there.
Because even with Fred still was distant from it all.
Yeah.
You know, he came in, he said things here and there, and that was great. But Vivian Vance as Ethel Mertz, Ethel was in every episode. I'm telling you, she was in every episode, and she was in a lot of scenes. Yeah. I'd say the very few episodes she was not in was right when Lucy had the baby. And then that was it. It was like 2 episodes, and then that was it. Otherwise, Ethel was in every single episode,
which was very controversial back then.
Those
episodes, because they did not want her to film pregnant.
They didn't even want them to say the word pregnant, which was crazy. I mean, you think about that now, it's like, I can't imagine not even saying the word pregnant, but they skirted around it. They said big event. Like, my favorite episode is Lucy is enceinte, I believe it's pronounced. And that's Lucy is pregnant in French. Yeah. I'm like, French? Why didn't they try to use a Cuban word?
Right.
Anyways,
right.
But yeah, that is one of my favorite top episodes, is that one.
Was when she had the baby?
No, when she, that is another really good one. It's definitely a top, but when she announces to Ricky that she's pregnant.
During the when he was at the club.
Yeah, so she's trying to tell him all day. She's super excited.
Oh, yeah.
She's trying to tell him all day that she's pregnant and like this is happening and that is happening. And he had to keep going back and forth to the club. Yeah. So she finally shows up at the club. She has the maitre d' give Ricky a note that she wanted to tell her husband that she's pregnant, or the big event.
Yes.
And then he sings it.
And he's just trying to figure out who in the audience is like, oh, somebody's having a baby. And he's singing. Oh, it was beautiful.
And then he's like, it's me. I'm having a baby.
Yes. And he sang that song. I can't remember what the song is called, but it had baby in it.
Well, he first sings like Lullaby.
Yes.
And, you know, like
Rockabye Baby.
Yeah, Rockabye Baby. And then the second one is a song called She's Having My Baby.
Right. And that was the way that they had, and like...
you can see her crying genuinely. Like, sometimes you can tell when an actor is being their authentic self and not the character. Is like when they're crying like that. You know, you can easily see that.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And but even
and it gets me every time.
You know, it's funny because like even though they couldn't say it and it was very controversial, because that was the reason why they slept in separate beds. Like it wasn't on TV. They couldn't portray that a man and a woman being married could not have intercourse. Right. But what an opportunity. You know what I'm saying?
It was huge. I mean, people don't understand that back in the day, there was like these moral judgment and review committees and, you know, that would come and be just all out of sorts if they saw this stuff on TV,
Which was crazy because behind the scenes of all of these like actors and stuff, they were there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes.
So you got to tell me, what are some of your favorite episodes?
Okay. So these became my favorite episodes after I learned more about them. So there was one favorite episode where Lucy is... Okay, well, let's start with the classics. Vitamin and Vegemin.
Oh, yeah.
Contains vitamins, minerals... What is it? Vita, Meta...
Do you poop out at parties?
Yes. Oh, my gosh. I just loved her transition... From like...
She got drunk fast, by the way.
Off of like little spoonfuls.
Yeah.
But that was the beauty of it. It didn't have to make sense. It was Lucy. And it was just fine. We accepted her for her. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, that the Vitamin and Vegemin episode... was one of my favorite ones. It was because she was just the way that she portrayed being drunk too, and then you did that old hiccup thing that nobody ever hiccups. I can't remember the last time I was drunk and went but yeah, I think it was just brilliant, just the way that she did that. And then she started like forgetting her lines at the end and just kind of like hunching over.
It was awesome.
It was beautiful. I love that episode. There's another episode that I really like. Well, actually the baby episode as well. I really like that one too.
Where she actually has the baby and they all practice?
No, the one that we were talking about with Ricky.
When Lucy Inciente. Yeah, where she tells... That one's beautiful. I love it. It's my first favorite episode. Yeah, that's my top favorite.
100%. That's one of them. I have another favorite episode of when she was stomping grapes.
Yes.
Okay, so what really intrigued me about that one was she was like dying during that scene, but she committed to it. Like the lady who she was working with didn't really speak great English.
Correct. Yeah.
So when she was pushing her head down, I mean, it real like a real fight ensued.
It sure did. They did good.
So when she was pushing her head down, she couldn't breathe.
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she was really like being she was drowning.
Oh my gosh.
Under the water. So when she was popping up to gain air and the lady was pushing her down, they couldn't convey to her like, you're killing Lucy. But I think that the commitment to that, like you couldn't read that on Lucy's face. She was probably panicking in there.
Yeah.
But the level of like dedication to that.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know how many takes it took, but I'm pretty sure with that one take, like she didn't turn to the person and be like, look, you're killing me. Can we do this again? It was just like, go with it.
Yeah.
And that was like, to me, I was like, holy moly. Like when I learned that, I was like, man, I respect her even more. Like she was willing to go all the way for this, even though it doesn't, obviously it doesn't, it's terrible. It's awful. But at the same time, it's just like who she was as a person. You saw her dedication then and there. So that was another one of my favorite episodes.
Another one, like right along the lines of that one with the grapes, because they were in Europe at the time.
Yeah.
This one was called Returned from Europe, and Lucy had brought back a huge thing of cheese. And she learned that she would have to claim it when she arrived. So she tried to smuggle it on like it was a baby. And when she realized that they were going to discover that she would have to claim it, she starts eating it, and then the whole passenger crew get excited and nervous. They're like, where's your baby, lady? And she's like, oh, I don't know. It was really funny to see her. She's like carrying the big thing of cheese with the blanket and pretending it's a baby, only to have eaten it later on, and then like everyone's freaking out about it, and she ended up eating the whole thing during the trip. That was a pretty funny one.
I love it. Another episode I like, another classic as well, was the conveyor belt episode with the chocolates. And them and Ethel and her, and like she couldn't figure out how to make the chocolates.
Oh yeah,
so she's stuffing them in her mouth.
And the hat and the bras.
Yeah, that's another classic one. That's one of my favorites as well.
Well, and they kind of replicate that one later in the season when they're at like a country farm, and Lucy puts all the eggs in her shirt.
Yes,
and then she does a number with Ricky, and at the end they just smack together.
Yes,
and there's just eggs dripping. So it is very, very similar, but we still laughed at it anyways because we're just being stupid and have to laugh at
100%.
that.
Yeah. With Lucy, I mean, like I said before, like the format was always the same. So what really intrigued me with the episodes and like what made an episode my favorite was the behind the scenes stuff. Like what really happened back then was very intriguing to me. That's what kind of like made it some of my favorites. Was like, wow, like just how much she was willing to just embody that
She
role.
put a lot out there in her scenes too. Very physical comedy, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And I was just intrigued with some of her development as a character, as a comedian, and as an actress. As her seasons went on, she took more and more risks.
Yeah, she did.
Like I was mentioning earlier, she liked to do a lot more physical comedy. She did physical comedy with just a look, with just a moment, with not even saying anything.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite episodes with her where she doesn't say anything except does a mime act is with Harpo Marx. And they do this whole mirror scene and stuff like that. And I found out like the behind the scenes thing was a lot bigger than I expected. She had to teach Harpo Marx how to do that whole scene because he kept tripping her up. He would add things to it. So they ended up doing it split screen because he was messing it up so many times.
I did not know that.
I was like, wow, because he was a professional at that point.
I did not know that. That actually is very intriguing to me as well. Wow. Okay.
So I have a personal story about the Marx Brothers.
Okay.
It's not a big story, but my grandmother is buried a couple doors away from Groucho Marx.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I didn't know this until, I don't know. I can't remember when it was when I found out about it, probably 20 years ago. And my grandmother died about 30 plus years ago.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't know. And anytime I go to her site, you always see all these cigars on his little thing. It's on a wall, actually. Yeah. And so you see cigars, you'll see the glasses with the nose and the little mustache, and you see like lots of presents given to Groucho Marx, but then there she is off to the side in the corner.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's my connection.
How crazy is that?
Yeah.
That's insane.
So one of my other favorite episodes I have is called LA at Last. And that's when Lucy, Fred, and Ethel all go to the Brown Derby because they kind of want to see some celebrities. And so they're looking at all the character pictures on the wall. And Lucy's like, oh, who is that one lady in the picture over there? Is that, Judy Holliday or Shelley Winters? And so Ethel starts looking at it and she's like, oh, ask the next booth if they know who it is. Ethel taps on the lady's shoulder and goes, hey, is that Judy Holliday or Shelley Winters' picture over there? She says, no, it's Eve Arden. And then she turns around and it's Eve Arden. And you're just like, oh my gosh. You're like, oh my gosh, that's funny. Yes. And then what ends up happening is that William Holden ends up being in the next booth to Lucy. And she kind of is being like real stalkery and obnoxious to him. So he decides to pay her back and stare at her. And so then she doesn't know what to do with herself. And this is a prime example of not having to say anything and just acting. She's not saying anything, and the whole thing is so funny.
The beauty of Lucy.
So funny. And then at the very end, the waiter trips and throws a whole bunch of desserts on William Holden. And then the whole episode gets worse because Ricky brings home William Holden to his house. Lucy figures it out and she's trying to disguise herself, so she gives herself this really long nose. He lights the cigarette and her nose catches on fire.
Yes. So, oh, it was so great.
I couldn't breathe.
So great.
I watched that particular episode twice and I was laughing each time.
Yes.
Like hard laughing. Like I already knew what was happening or going to happen. But yeah, I'm laughing going, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Why am I laughing? I know this episode.
Yeah.
So it was really, really funny.
And it just made her so unique as a person because I mean, I would not be able to do half of the stuff that she did. It's insane. I mean, I can try, but she was just the epitome of it.
Oh, I know.
The epitome of that physical
You can try
comedy.
to mimic her, but it wouldn't even come close to the way she did it.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is that before she started doing the show, she did My Favorite Husband. You heard about that the radio station My Favorite Husband? Yeah. So I think that aired from like 48 to 51 right before the show. And they were doing, because they had to do the radio show in front of a live audience. Yeah. So the audience would be able to see she was doing like all these expressions to be able to like kind of convey a certain like, emotion on the, over the microphone. But the facial expressions were so funny that it not being captured on camera was just like, well, why aren't we capturing this on camera? So she took that and then took that concept of My Favorite Husband, she was already married to Ricky, I believe, when she did the show. Yes, she was. And then they went off and just started their own, the I Love Lucy show.
And it paid off. It paid off. She was that funny with her expressions and stuff like that. Yeah. Did you like any of the Little Ricky episodes?
Not really. No.
I'm not gonna,
No, not really. And the reason being is because like he was there sometimes and then he wasn't. Like all of a sudden he was just like gone. Like where the heck is the kid?
In fairness, the day after they had the hospital episode where Lucy is pregnant and has the baby, there's like several episodes where there's no baby or even mention of the baby.
Where'd the kid
like,
go?
Where's the baby?
But even when he was like getting older, where did it
go? There wasn't really strong explanation. Sometimes they would say he was with the babysitter.
Yes.
But other than that, he just wasn't mentioned. He was just a side note.
That's why I couldn't really get into them even having the baby. Like I understand they had to like justify it because Lucy was actually pregnant.
Right.
But at the same time, I was just like, well, where'd the baby go?
Right. I mean, the audience couldn't bond with the baby and really get invested.
I couldn't get invested with little Ricky.
I can see that.
Yeah. So to answer your question, no, I don't. I mean, his episodes were very, I don't even remember a lot of them.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately.
I loved him. I mean, he was a really cute kid. He was listed and billed as Richard Keith, but his name is Keith Thibodeau or something like that. Thibodeau. He was a 3-year-old little boy who could play the drums. He was already touring with an orchestra at the time. And like an orchestra band type of thing.
Yeah.
And his dad brought him in to not only interview, but audition as Little Ricky. And Lucille Ball saw him and said, well, he's really cute, but what else can he do? And the father's like, well, he can play drums. And she's like, well, there's some drums right over there. Have at it. He plays it. He starts playing. And then Desi Arnaz comes in and starts jamming with him.
I remember that.
And then when they were done, he said, well, it looks like we got a Little Ricky. And the one thing I do love about Little Ricky is, first of all, I mean, a 3-year-old playing drums, my gosh.
Insane.
And the other thing was just the connection Desi had with Little Ricky, like when they would perform and stuff. And I said, well, there had to be more to this. So when I looked him up, it turns out that the actor who played Little Ricky became really close to the Arnaz family, Desi, and even Desi Jr. He ended up being their best friend.
Oh, wow.
And he even taught Desi Jr. how to play drums as they were getting older. And Lucy said that Keith was always at their house every weekend, that he's in so many photos and so many of the home movies that he's like a family member to them. So even her mom kind of adopted Keith as her little grandson as well. I kind of do want to talk a little bit about Desi Arnaz's attractiveness, you know?
Yes.
Because he was a very attractive looking guy. He was the accent. He was talented. I mean, there was something very unique about him.
100%.
I mean, especially, and his singing ability too was improving and increasing in a wonderful way throughout the show. I mean, they were featuring him more and more, and he was doing such a beautiful job. You don't really hear singers like that anymore. It's a very old-fashioned type of way he sang, and I just loved it.
I mean, Cuban feel. I loved it.
It was very, very authentic. He came from an authentic place when he sang. You could tell. I really like that, and I could see why women would have been very attracted to him, because there was like a macho-ness, you know, a little bit of a bad boy. He's funny. You know, he had the funny words, you know, because anytime he said funny words were true to him. He couldn't pronounce those words, so they just made fun of it, and he rolled into it. You know, my favorite was anytime he was trying to say the word psychiatrist. I don't know if you remember. He would say like psychiatrist. Like he would try to say all sorts of words and stuff like that. He could never say the word psychiatrist, but you could tell that that's how he genuinely understood how to pronounce it. And I love that. I was like, wow. And he did it a few times saying that particular word. So his comedic timing, you could tell he learned that from Lucy. You know, you could tell. Or Lucille. I'm not sure which way I should go. Yeah, you could tell he learned that from Lucille Ball. But he embraced it. And I think that's the one thing about comedy you have to do. You have to embrace it. You can't fight it. I mean, you and I do improv. We can't fight it. When someone's saying, you have to yes and them. You know, if someone's saying, hey, there's a boat over there, you're like, yeah, I see it too. It's the smallest boat compared to all these big ships around us. Like, you have to agree to it and roll into it. And that goes with any type of comedy, not just improv, but any type of comedy. You have to roll with it.
And not only that, but it was very controversial to have a white female and a Cuban brown man
mixed races
in the 50s. Are you kidding me?
And on TV. Mixed races was a really big deal. She got away with it because he was Latino. But if he was black, it would have been a whole other different story.
It probably
you could have been arrested for it.
And going against those rules and against those laws, they didn't want Ricky to be they wanted to cast Ricky as somebody else, but it wouldn't have had that authenticity. They pushed boundaries of stuff that they said you can't do it, and Lucy was like, well, let me I'm going to show you that I can do it, and I'm going to make it a hit. And she absolutely did that.
Oh, she did.
She loved Ricky so much that she actually, the reason why she did the show in the first place was to save their marriage. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Okay, so she was trying to save their marriage because Ricky was cheating on her around that time still.
Oh yeah, like they call it a wandering eye.
He had a wandering eye. Too many women.
That's what they called it back in the 50s, like a wandering eye.
So he was being a playboy, and she started the show because she felt like if they can work with each other and be like always, she wanted to be always near him, and she felt like it was gonna save their marriage.
Oh wow.
It ended up like lasting 6 seasons from 51 to 57,
something like that,
56 or 57. But it was an attempt to save their marriage.
Well, that's why the show ended, is because their marriage was just too much on the rocks.
And that show probably could have went on for, even if it was the same, it was still the same concept.
It was.
I'm sure it would have evolved over time.
See it. I thought, because I wanted to see if you could see it in the 6th season. And there are times when you can see it.
Yeah.
One of the worst episodes was called The Indian Show. And it's where Ricky dresses up as an Indian. He sings with an Indian woman, like a Pocahontas or something like that. And actually the song is really beautiful, the way they sing it and stuff. In fact, it's really well sung. But you can tell the real actor, Desi Arnaz, is looking at the singer with gazing eyes. You know, like there's a certain look that is out of his character, but in his real person, and you could just see it, and he's looking at her and reacting to her that way, and it sucks. And then what ends up happening, you forget about it because Lucy ends up coming out in the end and singing the song off key, and it's hilarious,
right?
But there's a moment like that. And in the 6th season, you do not see Lucy and Ricky really being physically together. Like there was a lot of times in the other seasons where they're hugging and kissing, or like he kisses his wife on the cheek, he comes in the door, kisses her on the cheek or something like that, but there's less of that intimacy, there's less of that physicality with each other. That is gone, and
started dwindling.
And I do not know this 100%, but there is speculation that he was drinking more heavily in that 6th season. And I think he was, because there's times when he just seems a little glazed.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just like that moment that was caught, or he was tired or whatever, but there was several different episodes where you can see that, where you can kind of sense like something's off about him.
Yeah.
Compared to her.
Yeah.
And she ends up carrying the scene a lot more, but he's a little checked out. This is a great part, or a great spot for us to stop, because now we're going to play a game called Stump the Guest.
Woo.
And if you haven't heard about what this is where I ask my guests a bunch of trivia questions that are extremely hard, because they always insist that they are an expert about this topic that they asked to talk about. So I wrote a bunch of really hard questions to try to stump my guest Brittney on the TV show I Love Lucy. Are you ready?
Give it your best shot, Celeste.
They all say the same thing.
Give it your best shot. I'm ready. I was born ready for this.
All right. We're going to start off easy.
Okay.
For the production show Desi-Lu, what does it stand for?
Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball?
Correct.
Yeah! Woo! Told you.
All right. In the TV series, what does Lucy's mom always call Ricky?
I'm gonna. Oh wow, that's. I'm stumbling on the second question. This is not looking good for me.
She's in the picture several times.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I can't. I'm gonna have to just guess bobblehead, because the bobblehead.
Wow.
The bubble.
Not
but that would have
been.
But rewrite that script.
No.
I'm gonna go back in time, and that's good stuff.
She used to call him Mickey.
Oh, wasn't that hard? No, but that was good, right? Babaloo, bobblehead, you bobblehead. Come on, man.
I don't even know if bobbleheads existed back then.
No, they probably didn't.
All right,
I'm ready.
What is the name of Fred and Ethel's dog?
Are you kidding me?
I swear, Celeste, I know everything there is about the I Love Lucy TV series. There's nothing you can ask me that I don't know.
I didn't know we were going to get so deep.
It got
dog.
deep.
Munchkin.
Not even remotely close.
I know. I don't know why I said it. But what's the answer?
His name was Butch. He was in one episode called The Diet, where Lucy was trying to lose 12 pounds so she could fit into a costume in one of Ricky's shows at the Tropicana.
Okay.
And while she was underneath the table, she was fighting Fred and Ethel's dog for food.
Butch. Okay. Do you have some more? Bring it to. I got to get at least 2 right.
Who was the character Fred named after?
Celeste, how dare you? Number 1. Fred. I'm gonna go ahead and say an actor. Her father.
You could say it. Doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah. I'm gonna say. You know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and say her father.
You are warm.
Oh. Her grandfather.
Yes.
Yes.
And her brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. See? Gaining momentum back.
Okay. So, what was their address on the show?
Really?
When they lived in New York. They said this often.
Well, I know the state was New York. I know that part.
True.
I know there was some numbers in there and a street address.
Really? That's where you're heading to.
I know there was a city there too. I'm sure of that. I'm gonna go with 5703 Star Burst Lane in New York, New York.
That is the only thing you try to sound confident on. New York, New York.
Okay.
Everything else is like random numbers, just like some type of spirituality.
I gotta give an answer. I gotta give something. I gotta give you something. Hey, what if that was right? You would have been shocked.
You weren't even remotely close.
All right.
I feel...
Yeah.
I feel like you've let me down.
I didn't want to let you. I didn't want to come here to do that, Celeste. I didn't want to go here.
Their address is 623 East 68th Street.
I should have. And we live in an area where it's nothing but numbers.
Yeah.
I should have numbers and letters. Come on, Brittany.
Yeah.
Get your head in the game.
And New York has a lot of numbers, so their streets have a lot of numbers.
Well, I've never been to New York.
I haven't either,
so
but I want to go.
In my defense, you know what I mean?
Well, I haven't been either, so how would I know that?
I know. You did your research. You're good, Celeste. You're good.
All right. So one of the things we talked about was how much you liked the candy episode, right?
Oh, man.
With the conveyor belt, the candy going by, right?
Yeah.
What was the name of the candy factory?
Oh, come on.
Yes.
Oh my God, I look like a fraud. Oh man.
I
Okay.
just want to say to everybody, she told me I could try and stump her.
I did.
And I told her, I said, look, the other guests say the same thing.
Yes.
The trivia is going to be a little bit hard. Are you sure? Yeah, I know everything, Celeste.
I told her.
You could try, but it won't work.
I was so confident before
are.
I got here. Okay, the candy store. What was it called?
Mm-hmm.
It was called Sweeties chocolate.
Are you just slurring?
It's the coffee. The coffee got me. It's the coffee. I'm gonna blame it on the coffee.
Really?
What was it called? I'm gonna be so disappointed in myself right now.
Kramer's Candy Kitchen.
Yeah.
And there you have it. We have stumped the guest.
You
she
have
only got
stumped me.
one answer right. But that's okay. We still love her anyways.
Ah, well, that's great. I try to sound a little bit like
Yeah,
Lisa.
there you go. All right. Thank you, Brittany, so much for being my special guest today. I'm so glad we had this opportunity to talk about one of my favorite shows too, I Love Lucy. If you're watching this, please hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to this, hit that subscribe button too. We would love for you to join us so you don't miss out on another episode. This has been Ladies on a Roll.